Hi everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 things that I am going to do to set myself up for plant parenthood. So, my name is Eddie and I am a wife, a mom, a therapist, by day, mom and wife by night, homemaker, and I am a budding plant parent. And I have been on this journey of, I don't know, like just becoming obsessed with plants maybe in the last 2 years or so. And so I don't know if it's like having had my daughter. I don't know if it's just being older. I don't know if it's just like wanting to be around plants more than people. I don't even know. I can't even explain it. But I really got into plants and I just quickly consumed a lot of plants in terms of like buying them and like just watching a bunch of YouTube videos and shorts and all of these things. And I feel like I have had some success, but more failures than success. And as I recently lost a plant, I was like, you know what? I'm just kind of done. I'm done losing plants. And not that you can ever be done because, like losing plants is just a part of life, right? But there's also this internal awareness that I'm being a little bit lazy about it, or I'm really not being thoughtful or like just present to what it means to be a plant parent, right? And I think that there is this notion of what you see on TV is not always the reality, right? And so I think for me, I got caught up in watching all of these people with these plant videos and maybe I'm new to the party. I mean, I've always loved plants, but I don't know. I think maybe COVID happened and people just were home with plants and they were just recording and I got late to the party because I had had my son in late 2019 and was just like first time momming a human baby and was trying to translate my private practice from being one of like in person and just building my practice to being virtual. And so like there were other things that like I didn't have this like COVID year to just discover some hobbies or some interests. But then I guess I don't know. I think when I had my daughter, I had a few moments to breathe and I started consuming all these videos. And I think I just started drinking the Kool-Aid, or I just started, I actually started to read magazines and I saw these houses with all these plants and I was just like, I want plants. And so I went down the rabbit hole. But I I don't want to say that I bought too many too fast, but I bought too many too fast without really thinking about what I was doing, right? Without really thinking about the way that my lifestyle is, having 2 young kids, having, my own practice, being the primary caretaker of the house. Like I think I just was lazy and no, I don't even want to say lazy, but I just didn't take the time to properly understand what it meant to be a plant parent because everything looked easy online. And so the thing that made me finally say like, okay, I'm done was I was home when my daughter was sick and I was looking around my house and I was like overwhelmed, and then I was just walking into my plant room and I saw this plant. Now this is a plant that was a cutting from my mother-in-law who passed away last year, and so I wanted a piece of her with me. And so I have a piece of her cutting, but then this is what happened, right? Like, that's what happened, like, to this jade. And I obviously am very upset about it, but it also just was another reminder of like, Ed, what are you doing? Like, you gotta take this seriously. And I thought I was taking it seriously. No, but I wasn't, right? Like I was being a passive plant parent, right? Like I wasn't being an active plant parent. And again, I think either what I saw was what I was watching on YouTube, or, again, when you watch shorts, these chores that like probably, should take me an hour was condensed into 30 seconds. And you're just like, well, it can't be that hard. It's like, I'm just going to water plants and I'm just going to blah, 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 right? Not realizing that either those people are very experienced plant parents, and so they can do that. They've either built a system or a routine where it does look easy for them, or it is easy for them, or it's just people who are novices who, again, it's like fun entertainment, but they don't really know what they're doing, or God forbid, they're just like, this is just entertainment, like I could really give two craps about plants, and so they were just making it look very easy. Or the experienced plant parents who know what they're doing are like, it is easy because they've done the work of really honing their knowledge and awareness about what it takes to be a plant parent. And when somebody presented this theory to me, it clicked, it registered, that I was just like, yeah, like if somebody said, oh, you're just like any other therapist, I think I would be a little offended, right? It's just like, you're like I could just talk to, my Siri or my chat GPT, and like they could give me therapy better than like you can. Why am I paying you? I could just talk to chat GPT, and you get like offended, and you're like, no, like this requires a level of work. And so I recognize that me coming in and just being like, oh, this is easy, or like, I don't need to learn, I don't need to like really study this stuff. Ugh, right? It's not offensive, but it's just like, man, like you just don't understand really that this requires a level of attention that doesn't require a lot of attention once you build your knowledge, your foundational base. So that, so that once this happened, I was like, okay. And again, I'm a believer in the universe, and so I was like, I need you to help me, universe. And what ended up happening was I ended up having a date day with my son, and we went to Barnes and Noble, and I ended up picking up this book. Right, I was drawn to it because I have a Chinese money plant that I'm like trying to figure out. But then I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna go basics. It was very, like seemed very approachable. And you guys, I started reading, and I would say just sitting at Barnes and Noble for 20 minutes, just reading this book, and then obviously I bought it, and then have like just taken 5 or 10 minutes to read through this book, that like has done more for me than me being on Instagram or YouTube Shorts and spending hours watching other people's hacks or other people's ways of doing things. That it's just like, how about I just take 20 minutes and actually read a book and read an actual resource, as opposed to just watching these videos. And again, there's so many videos out there that you don't know what is real and what isn't, right? Like I think, and I've watched people's comments, and people who seemingly are like much more experienced, you're like, you should never do that, don't ever do that, that is just the dumbest thing, and like you're gonna kill your plants and that. But I didn't know, right? Like I'm like, what do I know, like if what they're doing is ridiculous or stupid or is just, for entertainment? Because I didn't have my own foundational knowledge. I was depending on other people to teach me. And in the world of all of the social media, how do you differentiate what's entertainment and fake and what is real, and someone who's an experienced, you know, plant parent, when they're giving you advice versus someone who's just like trying to get views, or just is like, oh, this is like a fun little hobby and this is what I'm going to do. So for me, it was like the one thing that I'm going to do to set myself up for success is I'm actually going to read books. I'm actually going to focus on if this something like this is at Barnes and Noble, then I don't even want to say it's vetted, but like it's in a bookstore, right? It's somewhere where somebody took the time to publish this book, to have it edited, to have it photographed, to have it all of these things. And so, like at this point, I'm going to purchase books and I'm going to learn about plants so that I can actually thrive. So this would be my first recommendation. I mean, I was at Barnes and Noble, and there was like maybe 10 or 15 books, again, for succulents, for like tropical plants. It was just like the plants for dummies. There was just, again, I was drawn to this one because I have a Chinese money plant, and I was like, well, okay, I want to read about this. And so based on having read this book, like, and again, I haven't read it, but like all the way, but I've started reading it. And in the 20 minutes that this is what I have realized, that this is where I need to focus on, just just to establish a foundation, these are the things I'm going to focus on to set myself up for success. And then we'll see what happens. One is light. Now, I don't know, I got caught up in this idea of like, oh, low lights. Like these plants don't need a lot of, maintenance, and they're just easy to take care of, and blah 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 blah, right? And then I would put these plants in a corner because it was pretty, it was decorative, but it was getting no light, and then I would wonder like why it's dying, right? Basically, it's like light is their food. Try, yeah, I could live off of no food for like a couple of weeks, but that's not cool. Or water, like not cool. Plants need light, right? And again, got it. You when you see these things and you make these connections, you're like, I remember photosynthesis. I remember mitochondria. I remember the transfer, the carbon dioxide, and how they take our carbon dioxide and make oxygen of it. But if you don't necessarily connect the dots, that process is aided by sunlight. So guess what? Like now, my plants will have access to sunlight. Now, don't yet have it figured out how I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to again have to think about systems where there's going to be a rotation of my plants, right? It's going to be like you're going to get closer access to the window, you're going to get closer access to the shelf, or like whatever it is, whatever's going to be the rotation. And I don't know that rotation yet, but in my head, it's like every plant that I have will need to have access to a window, will need to have access to light. Now, I have an office where there's no windows, so I'm going to have to contemplate either not having any plants in my office or investing in some lights, the plant lights that people have. Like, so I will do that research, but I'm not going to bring any plants into my office where there is no access to light. Like, I'm done with that. That's going to be my number one thing. So number one is get actual real resources and real books. The second thing is going to be access to light. All of my plants are going to have some access to light. Now, as I grow and as I evolve, I'm going to learn about the whole bright, indirect light, shelf light, like this book. This guy's talking about a light meter, a light reader, and candles, and all of this stuff. And I will get there. But let's just get back to basics, right? At this point, the one thing I can commit to is I can move my plants around and have them have access to sun. The third thing is that I have got to get my soil game together. The other naive, egotistical part of me that was like, I don't need to learn about soil. Like, I'm just going to go to, the big box store and get some Miracle Grow. And then you see there's one that's specifically designed for tropical plants. And then you see one that's specifically designed for succulents. And I will be honest. I'll be like, I'm not paying for two different kinds of soil. They're probably all the same. It's probably a scam. I'm not paying for all that soil. These people are like, you just see them just put these plants in the soil, like it's this big bag, and they throw it in there. I'm not buying, succulents that's designed specifically for succulents. Are you crazy? Right? Idiot. Like, there is that aspect of it that where you're just like, because you haven't taken the time to really understand the plants, you are just going ahead and spending money and wasting money on like just not providing the right kind of soil for your plants. Like, you know, again, just reading this, it's just like, oh, when you hear about, oh, these plants grow in the desert, or these plants grow in tropical locations, like I really did not take the time to understand what that meant, right? And to be honest, I was like, I don't have time to understand what that means. Like, I just want these plants, and I don't have time, and I got to run after these kids, and I got to go to work, and like, I wouldn't even study where they come from in low light, and I don't know what are you talking about. Just put them in a pot with the soil, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then you see the people who are like, oh, I'm making my own soil. It's easy. It's better to make your own soil because, it's more cost effective, and you know what's going in your soil, and all of these things, which again, I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like, that's what I told myself, right? But I wanted to be lazy about it. I wanted to just buy one bag of soil, and it was like, all right, like, it's expensive. Soil is expensive. And then you're just like, I'll just slap everything in the same soil. Well, as you read the soil, and you're like, no, some plants need to sit in water, and some plants don't like water at all. You hear that, but you're like, well, what does that really mean for the way that I pot my plants, the way that I look at them when I go to the store to buy them. What does that mean? Like, does the person, like when I go to a big box store and buy a succulent, are they putting it in a soil that just has way too much water retention soil, or did they put it in the right soil, which I'm learning is more like a sandy, coarse soil? Again, when you hear like sandy, coarse soil, I tell myself I don't have the time to really understand what that means, right? Like, this is fine, this is fine. It says potting soil, like it's just for potted plants. It's fine. Well, now you realize that no, like the soil needs to have a specific type of soil. Now, again, I'm still busy. I'm still like, I don't have time for this. But the reality is that I can actually just, now I have a resource, like understand what are the requirements for the soil. And not that I have all this time, but I have to make time to figure out soil, right? And whether that means I just go to the big box store and just buy two different types of soil, one for succulents and cacti, and then one for moisture loving plants, well, then that's what I'm going to have to do, because I need to create an environment where my plants are going to thrive in the appropriate soil, right? And again, I recognize that based on, I don't know what I did with this, based on what I did with this plant is I have this soil that was moisture loving. And again, it has these leca beads, which is stupid. I knew that leca beads maintain moisture. And I put this jade, this basically a succulent, in moisture retaining soil. And so it got drenched, it got soggy, it got root rot, right, look at that disaster. And it's I feel bad about it, because this is a cutting from my mother-in-law's plant, right? Like, what am I doing? Like, this is not messing around, but whatever. So so the my focus is going to be on getting my soil game together. Now, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to, at some point in the spring, when it's time for me to like repot my plants, I'm going to have two buckets, and I will study this, and maybe I will become more confident in trying to make my own soil with the, whatever the blend of the blend of sand versus potting soil, or perlite and coconut coir, and plant for moisture loving a plant, like maybe I will just have two buckets that it will be, so that when it's time to repot my plants in the spring, I will just work on succulent soils or my succulent plants today, and then the next day or the next hour I'm going to work on my moisture loving plants. But I've got to figure out my soil game. Like, that's going to be a non-negotiable. Like, that's just something that, again, is easy, in that you just either buy the soil that is already pre-designed for that, or you learn how to make your own, and then you give the right soil for the right plants. That's the third. The fourth thing about the soil too is, and I learned this trick that I have yet to use. Let me take that back. I have used it, but I don't really know what that means. But like, so I have these moisture meters that I bought, and they were on sale, and I bought the thing, and like, I feel like they just don't work. Like, they either broke, or I don't know, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. It is possible that I am doing something wrong, but it's like I do not take the time to actually understand what that means when they're like, oh, we'll just leave it dry for 2 inches below the thing. I would just put my finger in there, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's right. And I would just water it, not realizing that maybe a succulent, like, they don't want that kind of water. Like, they stop it. Like, they just don't touch it, right? So here's an example of, now I have this bonsai. Like, look at this, right? Now, I don't know anything about bonsais, but I'm going to have to learn about bonsais, because I need to recognize it is by the window, so it is getting light. But the soil, I don't know if this is the right soil, but this trick that the author was teaching you was that, like, you want to aerate, right? You want to create holes in the soil to give it some oxygen, and to let whatever, like, nutrients, look, when you fertilize and all of that, like, when you need your nutrients to go through, that you just kind of poke the holes. Ooh, yikes, right? And so that you allow oxygen and water to penetrate and get through. right? So this is another trick that I've learned that I'm going to incorporate, is using these wooden, these wooden skewers that I get from, ShopRite or whatever the case is, to actually learn about what does that mean for the soil, right? Now, the basic thing that I learned is if there's dirt that is sticking to the chopstick or the dowel, then that's where your wetness is. That's where the soil is wet. And if it sticks to the soil, it's wet. If it's dry, and again, this is the Hot Mess Express right now, right? I would put this in the succulent, and if it comes out dry, like look at that, right? Now that's one of my succulents. I don't know what that means yet for what do I have to water with this? I don't know yet. This is what I have to study. These are the things I'm going to learn for myself over time to set myself up for success. So having like something like just a chopstick or a wooden dowel to begin to test the water instead of depending on like the hydrometer. Now I'm going to use this, and this is going to be able to tell me, like how much water is really in there. And if it comes out completely dry, then I know I need to water that. And then I have to figure out what that means, right? And then that is tip number 4, right? Like, one is get off YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff for plant hacks. Figure out your thing. Give your plants light. Just make sure that they have access to light. I guess at all times, I'm going to say. 3 is figure out your soil. Just figure out like the right type of soil for the right type of plant. And 4, get into like aerating your soil before you water them. And then 5th is the watering, right? Like, it's just figuring out, once I understand the plant's soil needs, the light needs, then it's about the water needs, right? Like, I tend to be very heavy-handed with water. I will admit that I struggle because I look at that, like I just saw this plant, the succulent that is dry, and I'm like, I just want to water it. And maybe it doesn't need that, right? It doesn't need that. So I don't know yet, right? But I have to study. And when I say study, I'm like, it's just 5 minutes. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, and now this book, he does not really get into succulents a lot. So that means I'm going to buy a succulent book, and I'm going to study about like how do you determine, what it means to water the succulent, because you leave it to YouTube and they're like, leave it for months, don't water it. You leave it to others and they're like, well, once it's absolutely dry, once it's bone dry, then you thoroughly drench it, and then you don't water it for a long time. What's a long time? Weeks, months, days? I don't know, right? This is the stuff I have to learn, and I cannot depend on others to teach me what I should learn. So those are the 5 things that I'm going to incorporate, and just follow along with me, right? Like, I am saying this to you, like, I don't want to say that this is entertainment, but it is entertainment. But I hope that I learned some things and I could pass that knowledge on along to you, or learn from you guys. Because please, if you the seasoned people, you have tips, please share them with me. Like, I need tips. But I will also say that once you give me those tips, it is my job, it is my responsibility to just then figure out what that means in like Eddie language, or like in concrete steps, right? Like, if because that's the thing too. Sometimes I tend to be very literal. Like, you just have to tell me. You say bone dry, like, what does that mean, right? Or it has to be like, put the stick in it. If it comes out completely dry, then don't water it. And if it's a little, if it's completely bone dry, water it. If there's still a little, even on the little bitty tip of the toothpick, then don't water it. Well, then that's going to be like something that I can use as a marker to until I become more comfortable as a plant parent. So I hope that this was helpful. I am sharing the journey with you, the process with you. I will obviously keep you posted with these videos that I'm going to share. My biggest goal is to salvage this plant as best as possible. I would love your tips if you have any. Because yeah, this is a yaya. This is a yaya cutting, and I really want to try to ensure that she has a second life. So thanks, you guys. I will share the next video that I'm going to record, is just a little bit of an update on where I am with my plants. So thanks, you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.